In 2022, the Monster High Generation 3 doll reboot was released. Mattel took the existing OG characters and reworked them into new ideas. Claudine was now half human, half werewolf, Draculaura was now a witch, and Frankie Stein was blue. If you know, basically anything about toy brands, you probably understand the concept of generations. I feel like My Little Pony is a great example of this. This is Generation 1 MLP from the 80s, Gen 2, Gen 3. Gen 4 is where the main popular show is from. When a brand is dying, the company really likes to completely reboot the franchise to get with the times, if you will. These reboots often keep many of the same characters or rework existing ones into different characters. Now, the reason I bring this up is that there's another 2010s kids franchise that has yet to get a modern reboot and likely never will. The 2010s were full of princess media. I feel like the Disney princess brand was really going strong, especially with all its random spin-offs. But come on, those were kids' toys. Where were the princesses for the ages preteen plus? Luckily, in 2013, Ever After High was released to the public. It serves as a sister show to Monster High, where all the characters were children of fairy tales rather than monsters. I honestly feel as if this franchise was pretty amazing. The show is so compelling to me, even to this day. All the characters are forced to follow their destiny as the fairy tale characters before them. So our main character, Raven, is the daughter of the evil queen, and she is supposed to poison her best friend, the daughter of Snow White, and then be in prison for the rest of her life. Super cool concept, right? You know who also did this? Disney. In 2015, the Descendants movie was released, following a group of children of specifically Disney fairy tales. This unfortunately kind of killed Ever After High, because of course Mattel couldn't really compete with Disney. So the show eventually died out around the same time Monster High originally did, and while Monster High eventually got its third generation, Ever After High did not. I feel like a good part of this could be attributed to the fact that Descendants is still going on, but it's likely safe to say that Ever After High is a lost franchise. While Mattel will never give Ever After High a second gen, there's nothing saying I can't. People have done this all the time, most commonly for My Little Pony, but I thought it'd be super interesting if I reimagined a new Ever After High, redesigning the old characters and refreshing their stories. So yes, this is a redesign video, but I also wanted to include things I thought could work really well with the whole fairy tale kids thing. Basically my own personal AU for Ever After High. And I may also miss some parts of the source material, but hey, it's my video, so I get to choose what happens.
Raven's Tale, the story of a rebel.
Okay, to set the scene, you are Raven Queen. Your mom is the evil queen who is locked away in a mirror for poisoning the very famous Queen Snow White. And now, you're in high school, surrounded by everyone who is scared of you because they all know you're going to become evil just like your mom. If you try to go against this determined destiny, you were told that you and your story will cease to exist. Raven, of course, does not want this. She's nothing like her mother. She's actually one of the nicest people in the entire show. I think Raven is a really amazing character. She has those mommy issues, the eternal conflicts, and is teaching kids to go against that norm. And she really captures the edgy aesthetic that many kids really crave as teenagers. But she's just a little inconsistent. She wants to make her own destiny, but we rarely actually see her do anything about it outside of the short parts and specials. Which is normal for these kid shows, of course, but it really makes me crave so much more from these characters. And yes, I know she does some stuff with the Destinies and the Wonderland special, but I really want her struggling with what she wants her future to be. Give me identity angst. Reboot-wise, I wanted a more definite beginning, almost like writing it as a YA fantasy novel instead of a series of webisodes on YouTube. Raven enters Ever After High for the first time and meets all the fairy tale characters that live in the world. All the students are immediately afraid of her and scared that she will cast spells on them. The first real person Raven meets is her roommate, Applewhite, the daughter of Snow White. Apple is super kind to her, and Raven feels as if she may be the first person to ever really understand her. That is, until Apple makes a one-off comment in conversation, something about Raven being evil, and this fully sets off Raven. Her first friend in all of Ever After High didn't even think she could be more than an evil queen. This conflict really hurts their friendship, and Raven is forced to find new friends. This new friend will eventually be Maddie Hatter, daughter of the Mad Hatter, and they work together to solve whatever wacky adventures their boarding school brings them. I really pictured the reboot having a much more chronological story. Like, I'm picturing the first Harry Potter books where it's just like crazy stuff happening in the school, or like the 6th Wings of Fire book if anyone is picking up my niche. In the show, it often switches between whether or not people actually like Raven. Sometimes she beefs with the royals, and other times they're the best of friends. This reboot, however, will really have her against like most of the people at the school, because they're all scared of her, you know? She's only going to have 3 real allies, and they're like Maddie, Cedar, and Cerise. Design-wise, I really just wanted to push more of that alternative, edgy look they had for her in 2013. I straightened her hair and just made it like crazy long. I imagine that when she uses her powers, the wind picks up and makes it swirl around her like crazy. I want my Raven to be a lot shyer and more anxious. She's originally pretty outgoing, but I feel as the entire school shuns her out, she slowly becomes more and more reserved. So like my character mood board for her is like Nico D'Angelo, Moonwatcher from Wings of Fire, Mark Grayson specifically, season 3 and 4, Twy, Elphaba, and maybe Gerard Way, depending on how I'm feeling. She has a velvet dress, low-key inspired by the iconic Morticia Addams, and then these mesh sleeves. I covered her in a lot of these silver accessories, so like the piercings, her combat boots, etc., just to like further separate her from the preppy princesses that surround her. I really like the fantasy look all the original characters had, but I think it could still be fun to lead into more modern fits. Raven can dress like a future queen, but can still also look like a high schooler. The leading conflict in the original Ever After High is Legacy Day. All the fairy tale children have to sign the Storybook of Legends, which cements their future, pursuing the same fate as their parents. In my reboot world, there's already a lot of rumors about whether or not Raven will follow her fate. Everyone hates her because she's evil, but they also hate her because she's trying to be good and disrupting everything. Apple especially feels this way. She's scared that Raven changing will doom their story. Legacy Day happens, Raven slams the book closed and refuses to sign. Everyone is shocked, but a new group of rebels come from this event. Everyone who refuses to follow their set destiny is considered one, and the school is set into chaos. Raven is now indirectly leading this entire rebellion without even trying to. Ever After High already had this rebel versus royal thing going on, but the reboot turns it into a much bigger clash, fully shifting the foundation of the school. This is where the Maddie and Raven school adventures would likely begin. Likely something with the specials in the original show, arcs dedicated to Spring Unsprung, Wonderland, Throne Coming, and Dragon Games, just with like a much darker and YA novel tone. In conclusion, Reboot Raven looks good. I really wanted to have a stiff pose to capture her anxious energy, but I was super worried it'd be too amateur. I'm low-key running out of pose ideas after all these character design videos I keep doing. But other than that, I'm happy. She's cute, definitely the kind of character that would easily be my favorite.
Apple's Tale, the story of a royal.
Applewhite is Raven's direct foil. She's the perfect royal with a perfect future set out for her. She was raised to be the best there is, groomed to be the perfect queen following her mother. While Raven never had much contact with her own mom, Apple's every movement is controlled by hers. She's been preparing for her future since the day she was born. Apple is the most popular person in school, and then Raven enters the scene, the shy and anxious girl who is supposed to poison Apple one day, and I think she kind of sees it as an opportunity to please her mother. They become roommates and even friends for a bit, but Apple is way too by the book. Raven has to be evil. That's her destiny, right? This freaks out Raven and ruins their relationship. I think a lot of people are too harsh on Apple's character. They call her evil and selfish for wanting everyone to follow their destiny, and she is, don't get me wrong, but that's consistently shown to be her biggest flaw for a reason. Apple was promised this perfect life and is scared that if things don't go perfectly, she is going to die. She's forced to deal with all these huge decisions while simultaneously trying to be the best for her mother. Apple is supposed to be the perfect princess. She's kind to her friends and nice to animals. She works hard in every class. She doesn't try to be a bad person, but the way her mother raised her left a stain on the way she interacts with others. I think Raven ending their friendship really confuses Apple. She knows the fate of the evil queen isn't good, but it's better than destroying their story and ceasing to exist. Legacy Day happens, and Apple just has a complete breakdown. If Raven never signs the Storybook of Legends, Apple never gets to live out her future. I think this really sends her spiraling to change Raven's mind. She makes deals with the wrong people, and she does bad things to scare Raven. Maybe if Apple does enough, Raven will finally sign the book. I would be lying if I said Apple wasn't a favorite character of mine. She is such an amazingly flawed person. I think the show wasted a lot of potential with her character, but there's only so much you can do in a series of 2-minute webisodes and short series specials. I think the idea of a perfect princess being incredibly selfish to get her perfect ending is crazy. And it's not even her fault that she acts this way. She was really failed by every adult in her life. I didn't change it too much, just adding a little Apple motif and making it look like a real reboot outfit. I think out of everyone I've redesigned, it's really important that Apple's outfit is the most princess. I gave a lot of the other characters these modern elements in each of their looks, but Apple's just so attached to her princess dreams. She has this life set out for her and is already preparing herself for it, even in high school. In the original show, Apple is blonde, while Snow White has her iconic black hair. I've seen a lot of people headcanon Apple to dye her own hair dark to match her mother, and I was so close to including this in my design, but I was really worried about getting too far away from her original likeness. Like, her blonde hair is just so iconic for her. I don't want to say Apple's role in the reboot is the antagonist, because she's definitely not the villain. But I'm picturing like these YA stories where each book is a different character's perspective, and Raven is first, and we get these terrible viewpoints. And then we see Apple's POV in book 2, where we learn that she's just a manipulated, misunderstood kid. The evil queen is obviously the main villain, and Apple is just like her assistant until she realizes she needs to help her friends. Then boom, final fight scene happens where everyone works together to stop the evil queen, and the story ends. The end. I really like my Apple. While she almost embodies that evil blonde bully stereotype, she's still meant to be super kind and helpful to those around her. I think as she spirals into more antagonism, her outfit would change to something closer to the evil queen. So like feathers and purples and such. She and Raven would be basically switching aesthetics. But other than that, she's definitely perfect for a reboot version.
Maddie, you have to help me. I don't feel like I can sign the Storybook of Legends, but I don't want to let everyone down either.
And do not forget the whole, if you don't sign, your story disappears, poof, and you may vanish into oblivion. That's a thing, you know, and it's gotta hurt.
Madeline Hatter is Raven's best friend and also acts as a comedy relief character. She is pretty obviously the daughter of the Mad Hatter, and also serves as the introduction to all the interesting Wonderland parts of the story. She's silly, she sometimes speaks in riddles, she's the perfect funny guy. Maddie is also the only character whose doll I actually owned as a kid. I buy a bunch of Monster High dolls with my adult money nowadays, but as little baby Castorinks, dolls were much too expensive, so I had to pick and choose the best ones. And that best one was, of course, Miss Maddie. The Ever After High webisodes and series include these narrators as if we were actually reading a fairy tale. A very fun part of this was the fact that Maddie was able to break the fourth wall and speak to them. If this were like my fantasy novel reboot I'm picturing, it would be super easy to just have Maddie talk to whatever narrator was written down. But also, if it's like a TV series again, it would be the same. Raven meets Maddie after her fight with Apple, and they quickly become inseparable. Maddie has a lot of acquaintances, but few people really want to be her friend. They call her too weird and never understand her riddles. There are other Wonderland characters like her roommate, Kitty Cheshire, but they don't really click too well. Raven and Maddie end up really understanding one another, where both are shunned by their peers. When Raven finally begins to spiral with the stress of her future, Maddie is always there to lift her back up. My Maddie reboot is definitely the furthest from her original design, but hey, you know, I gotta have at least one of those per redesigned video. It's on theme. Personality-wise, she's pretty much the same exact character, maybe just a little sadder when people treat her poorly, but the same fun energy she had before. Her outfit is much different than the dress she previously had. Most dolls wear dresses because it's easier to wrap one sheet of fabric around a doll than it is to try and fit them into pants. But I feel as if it's a little sad that a lot of the girls have the same, dress silhouette. I originally thought of a pantsuit because a lot of the references I was finding online were these 2010s Alice in Wonderland Mad Hatter Pinterest photos, but I instead decided on this kind of fun pants under dress vibe. It's not like an abnormal thing to wear pants under a dress, like that's a trend, yeah. It's not like an abnormal thing to wear pants under a dress, like that's a trend, but it felt like weird enough for Maddie, especially since the school is full of these rich, preppy royals. It makes sense that she would dress so differently from them. Outside of her outfit, Maddie is pretty much the same. I kept her purple and teal color palette, and I really liked her original crazy hair. It's a little simpler than you would typically picture from a Wonderland character, but hey, my style's kinda just like that. I think in some of the specials, like Throne Coming or Wonderland, she would definitely go all out in wacky patterns and textures, but this one just works as a clean, everyday design. I feel like Maddie's character is where the royal versus rebel part of the show starts to confuse me. What is the determined destiny of the Mad Hatter? Is Maddie just gonna have tea parties the rest of her life? She's considered a rebel by marketing in the TV show, but Maddie just wants to follow her fate anyway. So in my reboot version, I wanted the royals and rebels to actually like follow those definitions. By definition, original Maddie is a royal, but in my reboot, she's a real rebel. I'm unsure what fate I would actually have her follow or what her next dreams would be, but I think Maddie would have like a million dreams. Her goal is to do everything that the world has to offer, rather than be trapped in Wonderland forever. I'm picturing Barbie's closet where she just has an outfit for literally everything. When Raven doesn't want to sign the Storybook of Legends, Maddie cheers and also refuses to sign, joining the Ever After High rebellion. Then they work together to stop any school issues, blah blah blah. Same general story stuff I was thinking of earlier. Maddie's redesign was just so cute to me. She felt like a real reboot character, close to her original Wonder while being new and different enough to stand on her own. In a breaking the fourth wall way, I imagine the original Maddie and my reboot version would get along like best friends. Maybe they're able to contact each other through different generations. Maddie just starts mentioning some previous versions of themselves doing the exact same things they do, and Raven kind of just looks at her like she's crazy.
I am Briar Beauty, and I pledge to follow in my mom's footsteps and sleep for 100 years. But before I do, I'm gonna live every minute. Oh, speaking of which, my dorm room Friday night, we're gonna blow the roof off the place.
Next!
Briar Beauty is the resident Ever After High party girl. She's always trying to make the most of her life before she inevitably falls asleep for 100 years. Briar's one of those characters who seems kind of boring at first, until she gets this crazy internal conflict with her own destiny. We're introduced to her as the main party girl in the boarding school, who occasionally just falls asleep. And we're like, okay, is that it? But during the Throne Coming special in the original show, she accidentally sleeps through an entire event and just begins to lose it. Briar begins freaking out over the idea of missing 100 years worth of parties and time with friends. She is perfectly content with being a royal, yes, but is it worth getting everything you wanted if you never see your friends again? This conflict is integral to Briar's character. She's best friends with Applewhite, and as I mentioned earlier, Apple is crazy selfish over people's destinies. So when Briar suddenly starts wondering if she can get out of her eventual slumber, Apple is confused like crazy. It's so interesting to watch as Apple's entire circle begins to change their minds about their futures, while she herself stays so set on it until the very last second. Apple's other best friend, whom I didn't end up redesigning, is Ashlyn Ella, the daughter of Cinderella. She is also a pretty set royal until a big reveal with her boyfriend. You see, she is dating Hunter Huntsman, a rebel, and the entire school freaks out about it. Ashlyn tells the school that if her love for Hunter makes her a rebel, then so be it. Apple obviously also freaks out. Why is one of her closest friends switching sides? But back to Briar. Reboot-wise, she is probably a very similar, if not the same, character as the first generation. The only changes are really just her adapting to the new kind of story I was thinking about. She is still a royal, and she is still Apple's best friend. She loves her life, and she loves partying, and she is just an all-around great person to be with. But just like every other character, Raven's big break during Legacy Day really makes her begin to rethink things. Is it really possible to change your destiny just like that? In the original Throne Coming special, the characters find out that the storybook of Legends from Legacy Day was a fake, and the real one was hidden around the school. Blah blah blah, Briar ends up finding it in her room, and she throws it down a well. This well leads to Wonderland, and the characters eventually team up to find it. The important part of this, however, is the fact that Briar was willing to completely give away the book just like that. She's just such an interesting character as a royal. In the reboot, once the rebellion really ramps up, Briar decides to join Raven to defeat whatever evil antagonist they're up against. Apple is shocked, and they get into a huge fight that pretty much ends their friendship.
But Briar, we all have our part to play. Easy for you to say, Apple. You get poisoned for what, like a week?
Briar, I'm sorry you're upset, but
I'm happy for you, Apple. I'm happy that Raven is gonna sign, but now, I don't think I want to.
I think Briar's design is fine enough for me to not really change anything. I really like this side bun she has going on that's kind of shaped like a rose. She also just has a whole bunch of rose and rose bush motifs that are just so fun visually. Her original skirt, I think, is supposed to be shaped like a rose, so I tried to keep that a little bit. I did decide to completely redo her entire dress top because it was just driving me crazy. I really wanted her to have a good mix between princess attire and a general teenager outfit. I gave her one of these Renaissance era princess tops where they have like a really low cut collar. It just seemed fun and it set her apart from what Apple had. I obviously kept a lot of the monochrome pink and black and added a lot of these patterns that I had some fun with. It was pretty obvious that I wouldn't need to change Briar much. She's a party girl, she's nice, and she's fighting with her future just like every other character. I really did keep her as pretty much the same, and that's perfectly fine. I really enjoy how reboots can either completely flip a character or just fluff them up a bit in parts where they were lacking.
I am Raven Queen, and I'm going to write my own destiny. My happily ever after starts now.
This segment of the video is a little different than what I'm used to. Normally I design a bunch of characters and that's that. I turn them into a video and I never touch the designs ever again. However, for this video I was just having so much fun with my reboot and these drawings that I really just wanted to make this little character illustration. I was originally going for like a concept scene, but it turned more into a poster idea while I was trying to fit in all 4 characters. I wanted to mention like the idea of the reboot because of course this is nothing real. Me saying I want to reboot and rewrite a show I watched as a kid doesn't really impact anyone. Mattel is not greenlighting me turning Ever After High into a YA fantasy boarding school novel. And like I don't really seriously write any of these out. Everything you're hearing was just me writing a YouTube script. And most of these ideas either came from the drawing stage or me right now writing this. Anyways, in the drawing, I had Raven holding the storybook of Legends as this ominous green glow lights up her and Maddie's faces. I don't really know the lore meaning in this, but this is probably the fake storybook of Legends they find when everyone realizes that the one they originally signed doesn't even work. If you couldn't tell, it's supposed to represent this great divide between the rebels who are adventuring around the school, probably risking their lives for some greater evil, and the royals like Briar and Apple who are just having the time of their lives in school. This whole project made me really sad to think about how this show is never gonna come back. Disney is still making their Descendants slop, so it's never gonna get a chance. I've been really into things lately that are just so past their prime. I only ever owned one Ever After High doll as a kid, and I ended up giving it away. But I really think the show is a lot better than most doll content, especially with how today's stuff for kids is just so ass. This show was genuinely really good, and the characters were just so compelling. We barely get that kind of stuff for kids anymore. The final piece is super messy. I do a lot of illustrations like this on my Instagram, so if you're interested in something more polished, maybe just go check that out instead. Those can sometimes take me genuinely forever, and I was just looking for something fun and simple to close the video with. My key takeaways from this drawing are be lazier and photo bash backgrounds more because it made it so much quicker. These designs were overall just so nice to do. My last video at the Has-Been Hotel designs were originally drawn like 7 months ago, so I haven't done any redesign content in a hot second. And I'll be honest with you, some of those designs started making me go a little crazy. It felt so nice to just keep it easy with 4 characters. I hope you enjoyed watching up to this point. I was kind of just expecting to make these videos for like 10 people max, but there's like what? Almost 2,000 of you guys now? Yeah, that's kind of insane. Feel free to share any feedback you have. I definitely missed some parts of each of the characters. It's bound to happen, but please just be nice about it, of course. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hoping to maybe do some non-redesign videos eventually.
We talked a lot of leaving, didn't think you'd get that far. This is a first-rate town, you know. You just can't see very